Assalamualaikum. Today I will present the subtopic for internal control, test control. What is test control? Test control is evidence is needed to support the conclusion that specific policies and procedures that are likely to prevent or detect misstatement are effective. The evidence should demonstrate both the effectiveness, design of the policy and procedures, and the operating effectiveness. They are consistent. Purpose of test of control is to reduce substantive audit procedures. By relying on the client's internal control, this is when believe the client's internal control. They have three scope of test of control. Number one is nature. Nature is type of test of control or substantive testing. Four type of test of control. Number one is inspection. Number three, observation. Is a process of looking at the procedures that are being performed by the client. For example, we perform this type of test of control by substantive test. What is substantive test? It's an audit procedure that examines the financial statement and supporting documentation to see if there are content error. Assertion substantive test by transactions. Assertion substantive test by accounting balance. Number one is existence. The auditor select from items contained in the accounting record and obtain evidence that support them. Number two, right and obligation. Test of control versus substantive test. What internal control system, ICS, is referred to all the policies and procedures, financial or otherwise, adopted by the. There are three parties have definite role to make internal control system effective. Number one, management. Establishment and maintenance of an effective internal control structure mainly depend on the management. Through leadership and example of meeting, the management demonstrate ethical behavior and integrity of character within the business. Number two, board of directors. The board of directors possessing a sound working knowledge give directive to the management so that dishonest manager cannot ignore some control procedures. The board of directors stop this sort of unfair activity. Sometimes the efficient. Number three, auditors. The auditors evaluate the effectiveness in the internal control structure of a business organization and determine whether the business policies and activities are followed properly. The communication network help an effective internal control structure in objective internal control system, ICS. The first one, to ensure adherence to management policies, meaning that all the transactions are carried out according with management's general or specific authorizations. As you know, management will have many policies. Three elements of the internal control system are: number one, environment control. The attitude, alertness, and work zeal of directors, manager, and shareholders are reflected through environmental control. Number two, accounting. Five components of internal control system. Number one, controlling the environment. The control environment is the basis of other element of all other components of the internal control system. Moral value, managerial skill, the honesty of employees, and managerial direction are included in the controlling environment. Number two, risk assessment. After setting up the objective of business, external and internal risks are to be assessed. The management determine risk controlling means after examining the risk related to every objective. Number three, control activities. The management established a controlling activity system to prevent risk associated with every objective. These controlling activities include all those measures that are to be followed by the employees. Number four, information and communication. Relevant information for taking decisions are to be collected and reported in proper time. The event that yield data may originate from internal or external sources. Communication is very important for achieving management goals. The employees are to realize what is expected of them and how their responsibilities are. Number 5, monitoring. When the internal control system is in practice, the organization monitor its effectiveness so that necessary changes can be brought if any serious problem arises. Design and operation of internal control system. If you can see here, each category they have a different design technique required and operate different of internal control system. For example, they have sales, purchase, wages and salary, acquisition of fixed asset, cash receipt or check, cash payment, followed by policy and procedures of internal control system. This is an example or scenario for design and operation of internal control system. Sales cycle involve all those transactions and events that are initiated when an entity makes a sale, commonly by a high volume of routine transactions. Audit problem commonly related to clerical processing rather than complex auditing problems. If you can see, control objective for sales cycle are recorded. Uh, Bona fide transaction for merchandise actually shipped to customer. Common control policy and procedures, it will look policy of credit and terms, evidence of quantity shipped to reconcile to quantity invoice. Days of control, it will select sample of sales transaction from sale activity report, check for the authorization and trace to shipping document file, inspect reconcile of shipment to invoice. For cash receipt system, control type of misstatement in sales cycle, generally result of clerical mistake, employee fraud, misapplied accounting principle, especially around some revenue recognition issue, management fraud. For purchases, control adjective is recorded purchases, transactions that relate to goods or services authorized or received. Common control, approval of purchase order, goods received are counted, inspected, and compared to purchase order before acceptance. Comparison of purchase order, receiving report and supplier's invoice, and recomputation of supplier's invoice before recording the liability. Test of control. It will examine the evidence of approved purchase and service order. It will select order entries in purchase journal, trace back to voucher and inspect for existence of supporting document including receiving potential misstatement in expenditure cycle. As expenditure cycle involves disbursement of cash, there is a greater risk of fraud, including classic disbursement fraud, kickback, illegal act, and unauthorized executive fraud and cheating. Selling and administrative expenses. Processing and related control policies and procedures for selling and administrative expenses are similar to those for purchases of inventory. Auditor will normally obtain comfort from cash disbursement testing for inventory purchases and perform minimal testing in this area. Analytical procedure example comparing balance with prior periods widely used as a key type of testing. Payroll function is usually audited in either of two ways, or best combination on focusing analytical procedures. There are disaggregated and strong relationship in this area. For example, comparing fortnightly payrolls. An emphasis is placed on tests of transaction over the payroll area with a key control being appropriate segregation of duties in the hiring. This is the integrated test facility for a payroll system. If you can see, the computer application system, it will consist of production input transaction file, ATF transaction file, data file, production report containing ITF, This is for auditor use. Report without ITF data. This is for management use. For interest, rent, lease, and insurance payment, auditor usually take a more substantive approach, which include checking terms and conditions of contracts. Auditor interested in the key control of authorization of the contract. Accounting treatment of leases is complex. An auditor might check, control the ensure leases are properly accounted for. Testing control in client computer programs is a separate technique have to be developed for testing program control. These are test data, integrated test facility, control processing, reprocessing or parallel processing, review, program code, and result of job processing. This is processing of test data. It consists of auditor simulated transaction, client computer program, actual process result in visible form, predetermined processing result, copy of client master file, and also the client information system. If you can see the arrow, meaning that it's a processing client data consists of control processing. Auditor establish control over processing of client data. Control reprocessing means that auditor reprocess client data. Parallel processing is a simultaneous processing of client's data through client and auditor programs.